Right Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media for writers by writers. Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host and producer, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things right now, working on a military sci-fi / mystery and a knife fighting book. Yes, I know those are not related, thank goodness. Plan to have those out at least by the end of August right now, which actually, let's just say Labor Day weekend would be great. Also, too, got some new things coming out. Check out my fan page on Facebook, look for davidallenlucas.com or David Allen Lucas on Facebook. And hopefully by the time this airs, I will have full control of my website back from the website host. And so once that's done, that's going to be going through a complete refurbish. But check out eventually www.davidallenlucas.com. And if that wasn't enough, by the end of this month of January, which by now you are hearing, I will have an online course about writing the fight scene. Should be available. If not, give me one more week. And on that note, let me turn over to my lovely co-host, Kathleen.
I have to follow that? That was like a lot of information, and now I feel like a weenie for not having a lot.
Well, why don't you have more information? You're.
My name is Kathleen. I write paranormal romance under the pen name Cassette Anita. I am on Twitter at NKKMA, and I have a short story forthcoming from Nightmare Magazine in March.
Excellent. And I'll go ahead and go to for our audience, I'm just going to let you know, we are doing something a little different recording this. Brad is actually remote recording, so...
Yes.
Spot reporter today.
I am your on-the-spot reporter coming live from somewhere else. I am Brad R. Cook, author of the Iron Chronicles. They are Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and now Iron Lotus, which is out. You can get it online or in stores, wherever you would like. Got a bunch of stuff coming. Check it all out at bradarcook.com.
And also with us today, I'm going to point around.
Hi, I am Chanel Etienne, and I write sci-fi and fantasy.
Excellent.
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator.
And let's see, we're on countdown to the release of
Threadcaster, yes. I have a lot of work. I'm a little exhausted from it at the moment.
We love you
trying
anyway.
to meet some deadlines. The book will be out at the end of March. Launch party is on March 25th. The soft launch will be sometime before then if you don't live in town and you want to get it online. More details when I actually have the thing in a format that I can use to start off.
Yay.
Work.
Yes, lots of work. Also with us is Brad. I don't know what you're doing, but you're making lots of noise.
I have applauded.
Yeah, your trickle ghost is working.
Making noise. Anyway.
The clicking you were talking about before is...
Oh, okay, weird.
Yep.
I'm Melanie Lucas. I was about to say Melanie Colady, yeah.
You're both. Your identity extends to both for some
Yeah.
reason.
Okay, and I write nonfiction lately. That's all I've been writing, but hopefully soon again, science fiction and fantasy.
Also with us.
Fedora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis, and my new one, which is Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West. And I want to say something just because I'm so excited about it. It's a private deal, so nobody else can come, which is a terrible thing.
Aww.
However, I am going to speak to the Noble Bachelors, and they are the local Sherlockian Society, and I'm going to speak to them on February 4th, and my topic is Jack the Ripper, Conan Doyle, and the foundations of modern police work, and I'm just charged up about it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it's not open to the public.
No, it's
Yes.
Not unless you're a noble bachelor, at least.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a reason to become a noble bachelor. I don't know, that
All
sounds
right.
cool.
Can I just show up because I'm
I
single?
don't know.
There we go.
Well, this year I might have to dress up or something and sneak my way into that club. Anyway, also with us is
My name is George Soroy. I write science fiction for the young adult reader. My YA sci-fi novel Excelsior will be coming out through Aloris Publishing on May 1st. The sequel, Ever Upward, Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey will be coming out June 1st. And the 5-part serial from Parts Unknown will be coming out at a time to be determined. I'm also the vice president of the Missouri Writers Guild, and we look forward to seeing you at the Missouri Writers Guild annual conference from May 5th through the 7th in Columbia, Missouri at the Holiday Inn Executive Center.
And then after that, the following month, come out to Gateway Con at the Renaissance Hotel in St. Louis, June 16th, 17th, and 18th. Writers Conference, Readers Convention. So, and today we're going to talk about science fiction, and particularly we're borrowing the title, and we're going to talk about this particular article and go in more depth past it. Control the Future, Tips for Writing Sci-Fi. Or should we say, avoid the curse of obsolescence with these guidelines. This article appeared October the 13th, 2015 in the writing magazine called The Writer. You can find it and other articles at the Writer Mag. www.writermag.com. Sorry, I lost count on W's there for just a second. So I'm going to use it first to kind of just toss stuff out. I want your opinions. And yes, hang on.
Back.
Yes, back.
Reload.
This was written by Mark
Vorenkamp. Mark Vorenkamp.
Mark Foreign Kid?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Vorenkamp. Vorenkamp.
Why is everyone Why?
No.
Said the person with the last name that people can also be terrible about.
My
Why?
My name is also terrible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the name of the article again?
Control the Future for Writing Sci-Fi.
Okay.
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 We're going to
So
talk
It
about
is actually an interesting article. I did read it.
I need to apologize to the audience. I'm having a VCD day, and that's not good. For those who don't know what VCD is, that's vocal cord dysfunction. And I did actually share a pretty good video on that on David Allen Lucas on Facebook. So it often gets mistaken for asthma. It's not asthma. Anyway, I'm just kind of warning. I'm coughing like a crazy man. Okay, let's talk about the first rule. Avoiding direct connection to political entities.
Oh, I like that rule.
I do too.
Yeah. You won't get sued that way.
No, that's that. Yeah, directly attaching yourself to any political party in a novel, in a sci-fi. Go ahead.
Well, the example that the author gives in this article is in Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Yep.
And one of the world powers in that book, and probably series, I'm guessing, because Ender's Game is the first of the series, is the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is alive and well, and one of the world powers in his book. And at the time he wrote it, it seemed like the Soviet Union was going to be around forever. But by the first reprint, the article says the Soviet Union collapsed, and everyone was like, "Oh, it was inevitable." So he suggests not naming political parties or countries, even if you think, America's going to be around forever, but to do something that George Orwell did in 1984 by giving kind of things that evoke certain countries, but not giving them the country's name or direct link, direct one-to-one ratio of things.
So it was Oceania was one of his countries, for example.
Another good example of that happening is Arthur C. Clarke's 2001, 2010, and onward, the series, the Space Odyssey. If you've read the book 2010, which is the second book in the series, in 2010, a Soviet scientist gets together with an American scientist to convince him he needs to send people up to Discovery and up to Jupiter, where Discovery is orbiting. And now let's look at 2010. That was only 6 years ago. Soviet Union's been long since gone by then. Now it's the Russian Federation. Not saying it's not the same lovely country, just under a different name, but still.
There's also no way we could have gotten to Jupiter in 2010.
No, not at all, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, go on.
So, and though we have learned a lot more about Jupiter, I'm going to turn this over to George in this moment, that the way they went to Jupiter in that book and the way in which we would go now, you aren't going to survive the radiation around Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
The Jupiter's radiation belts are the largest structure in the solar system.
If you could see the influence that Jupiter has on surrounding space as a visible element, it would be bigger in our sky than the sun is.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, the Juno probe that went, it had to be protected. The instrumentation side had to be protected by lead and so forth, because it is being bombarded by, picture taking a dental x-ray every second. Go ahead, George, and then come over.
To dovetail on the mention of political parties, one of the things that really helps is to be as vague about who is currently in power as humanly possible, because what you're doing is you're allowing your reader to add their own interpretation to it and just kind of allow them to kind of make their own spin on it, because Democrats think Republicans are all about control in terms of like person by person. Republicans think that Democrats are all about control because the whole like government overreach, etc. So you can basically just say that like whichever party you believe would be in power, that would be all about control. Don't mention which one it is. Let the reader go ahead and add their own interpretation to that.
Well, this is all to date things.
Yeah.
Like you're dating yourself when you do anything specific like
Right.
that.
I think the key might be to, as one famous general said, preserve deniability.
Yes.
So that you don't out and out have to lie because you don't ever really say anything that is liable to be a
Exactly.
lie.
This dovetails.
Okay.
I was just thinking there was a scene on Babylon 5 where the end of a scene, you hear a character's voice, you see the hand of the character, but they never reveal who that character is. That's a perfect example. It's not exactly the same thing, but the point is they didn't show you things. And by not actually showing you this, they gave you more flexibility for what they actually did. Namely, they didn't have to come up with how the makeup was going to change for that particular character then.
Okay, Brad, and then Kathleen.
Yeah, what I was going to say is basically this is the entire point of science fiction. I mean, if you're going to write about real, the Soviet Union or the United States or something like that, write history, write historical fiction or something like that. But the beauty of science fiction is that we get to create, something that's just like somebody we can't stand, and then, mock them mercilessly or point out all their flaws. And that's kind of what science fiction's been all about since the beginning.
Sure.
I was going to say, films do something similar whenever they have the president, and it's only been in the past 8 years that if you see the back of the president's head, it's not necessarily a white person's head, a white male's head.
Uh-huh.
It's only, but
It's
like,
usually
it
Morgan
was
Freeman,
people's
no.
way of, or J.D. Fox, people's way of showing that this is the president, and you don't have to see their face. It's going to be a white man. So it's a way of keeping movies from becoming completely obsolete by showing a face that would then be likened to a certain president or a different president and then become dated.
Right, unless you're doing some type of historical science fiction that ends up using that former president that existed.
Yeah, I always love the bad actor trying to portray a president, either Ronald Reagan, JFK, whichever era you're trying to, it's amusing. Go Hollywood.
You definitely have to bring Star Trek into this whole conversation, because one of the key things that they did was basically just say that the Klingons were their version of the Russians, because it was created right in the middle of the Cold War. So they used that as a means of allowing the Roddenberry and the writers and everything to make these comments about what's going on while still preserving the science fiction element.
I'm actually I want to dovetail into that, but I'm going to hold off. Kathleen, you're waiting. I'm going to talk about other ways that you can play with political systems.
Oh, go ahead and do that. I have
Okay.
a.
Human history itself is so. I'm glad you brought up Star Trek because that's a perfect, fun thing to look at. Star Trek played with Nazis. Star Trek has played with the Roman Empire. That's called Romulus, or Romulan Empire. Romulus and Remus.
Don't they go back in time at one point to the Roman Empire?
Well, they
Or
actually
they
don't
land
go,
on a planet that is exactly like the Roman
That's
Empire.
what they
they
did.
didn't go back in time, but they landed on a planet which.
Those are the
Yeah,
two.
Well, and then there's the one with the god, the whichever Greek god or Roman god is.
Apollo.
Yeah,
Yes.
Apollo.
And you see this also go through some of the other spin-offs of Star Trek, not just the original series, but onward into DS9, Next Gen, into Voyager, and so forth. There's oftentimes you can take past civilizations, or what you see presently, like we talked about a little while ago, alter them and hide them in your story. You can base stuff off of it. Don't make it the Russian Federation you're going up against. Make a civilization like the Russian Federation, or like you see some civilization going. You think it might be going, and that's something to better play with. And also that also allows you. You're not limited by anything when you write science fiction. Ray Bradbury once said, "Civilization is." I'm sorry. He once said that science fiction is the last. I'm gonna screw up the quote, but basically I'm gonna get it right. The last place where philosophers are allowed to roam free. Play with it. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I wanted to veer off topic a little bit because I have read the list of rules, and this is not covered, but I think the closest thing that comes to it is the political point that he makes about not naming specific areas by their current names. So in science fiction, you depend a lot on science if you're doing hard sci-fi, or I guess even soft sci-fi. You depend a lot on scientific findings and then extrapolate from there and allow your story world to come together that way. So you use what is confirmed science and project a future onto it.
Right.
What do you do when your book has 9 planets in the solar system and then they decide Pluto's not a planet? How do you even deal with things like that?
Well, you start off first by writing Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever.
Yeah,
Don't write Neil. It wasn't Neil's fault. It was the entire.
He got it started.
Don't
He
shoot
didn't
the
finish
messenger.
it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Don't shoot Neil. You got to shoot the entire room. No, that's wrong. I didn't say that. You have to argue nicely with the entire room of people.
You can't
Just no, writing Chaos Media, no Right Pack Radio. Those are any violence.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. I had to get that out real fast.
Oh no, I was just saying this is not a horror movie. Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to live. Damn it.
Yes. No, I'm just saying though. But you're right. But to answer your question, I'm upset that Pluto is no longer a planet, but I understand the reasons why. To be honest, we don't know now. We know that there's probably another planet hanging out there, so there probably are going to end up being 9 planets.
Right.
Or
Changed differently.
10 or 12.
Or 10 or 12. I mean, we don't know what the Kuiper Belt's going to have, or what's just beyond the Kuiper Belt that's still, part of our solar system and stuff like that. So at some point, you just get to extrapolate out and have fun. That's fantasy. But I think it's, this is where it comes to about dating your world. Why do you have to say you have 9 planets? Why can't you just say the 3 factions come from here, and use the ones you do without saying, because it's kind of info dumping. There are 9 planets in the world of, wherever, 6 of them are inhabited.
Do you have Dovetail or?
Yeah.
Dovetail.
Well, as writers, we make choices all the time. And we make choices about and extrapolate about whatever we think is likely to be useful in whatever we write. Look at all of the writers today who write suspense, which is based upon the political system in the world. They surely know that is going to be dated in perhaps less than a year.
Yep.
They are hoping that their writing is thrilling enough that will make people want to read it anyway. Either that or they're ready to go on to something else and drop it. you have to make choices and you have to live with them.
Going with that, Jen, I know you've got to dovetail right into that as well. In fact, with the fall of the Soviet Union, the thriller writers had a little concern of who to make the bad guys until 9/11 happened.
Well, we'll go back to the Klingons real fast.
Uh-huh.
Klingons were created as a stand-in for a Soviet Russia type thing. But the Klingons are the Klingons. And because they weren't Soviet Russia, Star Trek then could keep using them after that was the topic they were addressing, because it wasn't specifically Russia that they were dissecting with their sci-fi philosophy. It was the way they conduct themselves as perceived by us Americans who write the show. So the Klingons have changed a lot over the course of Star Trek's history. They are what they need to be in whatever plot you need them to be in. And that is possible because they didn't look at the Klingons and say, well, instead of Klingons, let's just make them the Russian cosmonauts. Because the cosmonauts would not be given the same amount of flexibility as the Klingons have in the current versions of Star Trek. That entire storyline would be ended as soon as the cosmonauts are no longer a problem in modern American society, therefore dating Star Trek more than it's already dated.
So we have villain du jour.
Exactly.
Right.
It's taking your world and doing the thing that you want to do with it, but not relying on real world context for it. Like, you build it in there, and it does what you just said, Fedora, that it makes the story that's engaging enough to keep people thinking. Well, the problems that they were addressing with the Klingons back in the first seasons of Star Trek, those are problems that are going to happen forever and always. Unfortunately. But then it's a thought experiment that we can continue to have even after the Soviet Union is broken apart.
You know, we're back in Cold War again, so.
Yes,
Well,
but
they're
it's not
dating
called
our
Soviet
episode.
Union.
Right, exactly. Yes. Kathleen, George, then Brad.
So it sounds like what we're saying then is it's okay to take inspiration from the real world, but if you want to avoid dating yourself, dating your story, which is a fear that Fedora brought up, like when the Soviet Union fell and all the thriller writers, suddenly their work was dated. If you want to not have your work become obsolete in some fashion that is glaring to the reader and will take them out of it, you can take inspiration from the real world, but not do a one-to-one correlation between a certain political party or country.
Take inspiration, just don't point at it and explain it to people.
Right.
So, is yours related?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay,
All right,
and
go
we've got Brad
just
waiting
to
too.
just to add one little nugget on top of what Jen was saying about Klingons in the Soviet Union. What was brilliant about my personal favorite of the Star Trek films, The Undiscovered Country, was that Leonard Nimoy and Nicholas Meyer were able to take Chernobyl and turn it into a key plot point element in the Klingon Empire.
Yes, it was.
So by basically just having their Klingon moon Praxis blowing up at the very beginning of that movie and setting everything into motion. That wouldn't have happened if Chernobyl hadn't happened and given them that idea. So, that's one major thing I would definitely say for anyone who is writing sci-fi. Keep your eyes on what's going on in the world, because you never know what's going to inspire the next story that you're writing.
Okay, Brad, Fedora, Jen, then Kathleen again.
Okay, excellent. So I was going to say that oh, dang it took too long now. The notion of having, okay, scratch that. I'm going to talk about my favorite show of all time and how they dealt with political thrillers. So anyone who's ever watched La Femme Nikita, which is an amazing show from back in the 90s and stuff, they fought terrorism, which granted at the time now seems kind of corny and all, but and it was corny of the terrorism they were fighting, but they would fight not like any individual government or anything like that. In the way they didn't go around kicking all the world dictators and everything like that, was to fight terrorism. And the way they did it was by fighting Red Cell or some other odd, strange name that they invented for the week and kind of going that way. But that's definitely one way you can do it. But one of the things I love about sci-fi and a way to pick up your villainy with is to understanding that Russia represents something, Iran, China and the big bad North Korea, take North Korea specifically. They're kind of a dictatorship run by I don't want to say crazy warlord, but why not? Anyway, the point being is that taking that framework of what makes North Korea, what makes North Korea bad, and attributing that to whatever, Klingon-esque type you want to have or whatever villain you want to create, by doing that, you're pulling from the past, you're kind of morphing it into what you want, and then you're still kind of being able to say, hey, North Korea is bad.
Yeah. I'm going to come back a little bit to what he said in a moment, but Fedora first and Jen, then I'm jumping in.
I just wanted to say
And
that
then
being dated
Kathleen.
isn't always such a terrible thing. You know,
Yes.
like Jane Austen, her stuff is clearly dated, but it still has relevance to modern readers because it is so much a truth of the human condition, even though it is attached to a very specific time. And there are those then which can transcend their time periods,
Okay.
come back later. And we now have a timeout.
Yeah, time out.
I'm up to this side.
So we don't get the front door in the middle of your talking.
Oh, come on.
It's enriching our lore of our world here.
It's
The
delightful.
front door talks.
So wait, what country does pizza come from in our made-up world?
Pizza
Well,
comes
actually,
from
depends on what you depends.
what country did that pizza come
The
from?
magical kingdom of Delicia.
It came from Papa John's land.
Yes.
I don't know. That's like, can we call it Delicia? Because that way.
Delicia.
Does all pizza come from Delicia and this
All
is from
pizza, that's
Papa
more-
John'sville?
For our fans who are
Yes.
listening, since this, I'm
Is
not
this all restaurants or Taco Bell?
It's all staying in
I'm
it.
not gonna say it anyway. I'm not gonna bother cutting it out.
Oh,
When the right pack gets together for a double recording, which we're doing today, they get fed.
you
Delicia.
just you threw all our professionalism right in the garbage. Right
Yes,
there.
well, you know.
You pulled
What?
part
Are you
apart,
doing
and now we can see that we're just an old man turning wheels. There's no magic
Wait,
anymore.
wait, wait. Am I an old white man? Really? All this pizza hadn't been used in my life. Why would I be rewarded? So I could have been on top.
Wow. Okay, moving right along. Jen, I think you're next. I'm not sure if Fedora was done.
Snapper people like me need to sit down. I run this country. What?
I don't know if this is taking the conversation in a different direction, but I was sort of going to give the other side of the coin to this, making sure you do it well,
Yes.
which is my favorite part-time occupation, which is ragging on the Star Wars prequels. My other favorite is ragging on the Babylon 5 novels, but we'll get to that another day. In Star Trek, like we're talking about with the Klingons as our specific example we're using, we took real-world influence and we used that, we being intelligence in general. The creators, the writers used that to enrich their lore and their world and give the Klingons more facets. We borrowed Chernobyl and we made this part of their lore as well. We took at some philosophies that we wanted to specifically throw our characters and our characters' mindset against, and we gave that to the Klingons to further make their meta. By contrast, in the writing of the Star Wars prequels, I'm going to borrow a point made by one of my favorite movie analyst groups, redlettermedia.com. I love them a lot.
Yes.
But a point that really stuck out to me in some of their prequel reviews was that Darth Vader was given importance in the prequels that he didn't have in his world.
Mm-hmm.
He became important because he was important to the viewer. Like, the viewer really wanted to see him get in the suit. So they gave a whole lot of emphasis to him turning to the dark side and getting in the suit and what it brought, like what steps it took to getting in this suit. And they made him a messiah character. And if you go back to A New Hope and you just look at the script of that, they treat him like a weirdo. Like, he has no significance other than he's an SS officer in a weird outfit. They make fun of his religion to his face. He's slow moving and weird, and people are like, oh, it's Darth Vader, gosh. I mean, Leia pretty much just insults him right in front of all of his subordinates, and he doesn't do anything about it. He's not this be-all and end-all, but because to the audience, because the outside the movie lore, the real-world lore, invaded the movie lore from the outside instead of being incorporated in it, which they kind of tried to do by giving him a prophesied birth kind of thing. They tried to make him important that way, but that wasn't sort of what was happening in the original trilogy. That was an addition to try and make him more important, specifically because the audience, air quotes, wanted more Darth Vader.
Right.
So that's kind of my one side of the coin. The world influences the fictional sci-fi world in a good way, and then the world influences the sci-fi world in what my opinion is a bad way, because I think a really cool story about the Clone Wars would have benefited from less emphasis on Anakin Skywalker.
I agree.
Oh my gosh, the real world wasn't in Vader.
Oh, God.
Slow shake of my head, Tyler.
Yes, and Brad is even going, oh my God. Okay. Just real fast, I'm sorry. And then Kathleen's up next, and then unless you really do.
Did you want to say something about Darth Vader?
No, it's not about Darth Vader.
Okay. One of the things too, and then we need to move off civilization, move on to something else, off politics, I mean. But one of the things you can also do is take something that you admire as a culture and turn it on its head. Star Trek did this fantastically, especially with its own federation. It created the Borg, one of the biggest, baddest sci-fi enemies that they could do. And if you really look at if you break down the Borg with the Federation side by side in like a tea table, how they operate and what they look like, they're identical. They're just different sides of the coin. Go ahead.
So I did realize that I need to point out we're treating being dated like a bad thing. And the reason I think we all would say being dated is a bad thing.
I just got through saying it's not a bad thing always. I don't know.
I would totally agree that it's not a bad thing.
So the reason, I should have been an old white man for this. The reason that being dated is something I would consider bad is that it takes readers out of the story. When I see a reference that basically technology has surpassed, or like the Soviet Union, which has fallen, or, something that clearly strikes me as being not futuristic at all. It's like the future of the past. I'm taken out of the story. And I'm like, oh, this is old. And the entire atmosphere and the immersion in the story is broken. So that is why I, at least, am treating dating your work as a bad thing, as a negative aspect, and why I think this conversation is important.
You know what? I'm just going to pause for a second. Unless you want to continue down technology.
Yeah.
Cool. Because guess what the next rule is? And I'm running across the room here and give you a hug for doing this. The next one is avoid specific visual description of technology, because technology is known to change. Go ahead.
The example that I have for technology is from a story that I'm writing called Jinx. And I started this story years and years ago. I believe it is 10 years old now, because I think it was Nano 2006. And I gave it to Jen to read because I was like, I need to get started. I'm not quite sure how to get back into this. And she was reading through the first chapter, and she was like, oh, you wrote this a while ago. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? And she's like, the main character is a flip cell phone. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Cell phones that we have these days are basically mini tablets. And they're like, I saw this summer a keyboard on a cell phone, and I had not seen one of those in years. It had completely...
Where'd you get it? My dad wants his back.
My friend from...
Oh, he has to go to Malaysia to get a keyboard.
So I was like, wow, it completely escaped my mind that we used to have these. And then I thought back to my Nokia phone that was a brick. It was not a smartphone, it was a dumb phone. And if you go back in time, you see that the kind of technology that we have is not necessarily something that you would extrapolate based on what technology we had.
I made a huge mistake when I wrote the 2002 version of From Parts Unknown by having characters basically like incorporating videotape into the technology that was being used. Big no-no. And it was one of those things that just seemed normal to me while I was working on it. And it was only like until after it was all published, that was when my friend made a point to let me know about it. And so ever since then, I've been I was very careful to basically just kind of keep an eye on where technology was going, and then follow that sort of trend. One of my friends actually said that when it comes to like broadcasting, things aren't getting bigger; they're getting smaller. So just keep an eye on that and see like what people have access to. And so one thing that I would definitely throw out there to writers that are out there listening, a really good source if you're looking for any sort of ideas for anything to use in technology, because you gotta incorporate something in there. Go to Kickstarter, go to Indiegogo. The ideas that these guys have for their campaigns are fantastic. Just go to the tech spot and see what's there. Some of them, yes. You can pick and choose for yourself, like which ones you think will eventually like become something, and which ones will just kind of die on the vine. But at the same time, it's definitely worth at least taking a look and seeing where technology is going from there.
Along with that, just fast, I know I've got about 4 people who are dovetailing in real fast. Number one, there's a book written by Frederick Poole, where somebody was on a plane, actually was called into the upper atmosphere jumper, and he was reserving on his laptop a hotel and rental car and everything else, how to get around. Now, he didn't have a concept of PayPal. It was kind of cute. He used the credit card reader that was on the laptop to do it. Nowadays, it would be PayPal. So, but the concept was not that far away. That was written in 1983. So, believe me, computers were not that powerful yet when he was writing it.
He thought he was stretching it to have him using the laptop on the plane, right?
Exactly. And then along with George, also places to look, MIT, DARPA, also thefuturist.com. You can watch that. And there's also a couple other sites out there. I'll see if I can find them and toss them out there. But because I review, because technology has changed so much in our own world thanks to Star Trek, and people extrapolating and figuring out how to do what Star Trek did in real life. Science and science fiction are almost on top of each other now. It's hard to get a break between them. Brad, Fedora, Melanie, and then Jen.
Well, what I was going to say is, so I love that actually, but here's my thing. If you put cell technology into a future story, I'm ripped out immediately. I can't deal with it. It's like one of my favorite things actually is to go back and watch like 90s sci-fi because of how much they got wrong.
I love the past.
Yeah, I love it. It's so awesome. Even to go back further where like, you go back to the 70s and like the future technology still has tape reels going. But anyway, what I was going to say is one of the things, yes, you can go to all of those sources, and everyone just listed some really awesome sources that you can go check for your stuff. However, what I would say is think beyond that, because come up with something even wilder and crazier, because that's the technology of tomorrow, and you want your book to be read, beyond that tomorrow as well. So I love the idea of taking technology and equating it basically to what we consider magic. If you think about like a transporter or something like that, yeah, that's still kind of magic in our eyes. But like, a cell phone or, the pad from Star Trek, that used to be considered kind of magic, this little computer single screen that you would walk around and do everything on. And now we literally carry those everywhere we go. So, it's just, I love the idea of dreaming with sci-fi. So, don't stop.
Fedora?
Well, it seems to me that a possibility is to not do anything that is modern technology at all, because whatever we have as modern technology has gone through various kinds of morphing from one way or another. We don't have to run our cars on gasoline. Right now, there are people in North Carolina trying to figure out how to make a legitimate fuel for the internal combustion engine out of wood chips. And what we need to do, I think, if we're going to write something that's actually different in the world, is to go way back to theoretical physics. There is, once again, in North Carolina, a group of people who are working on invisibility. And what they say is, according to Albert Einstein, if you bend light, you can make things invisible. in the same way that water would cover a rock by going around it and making it invisible. If you can bend the light, that would go around it and it would make it invisible. So if you go way back to theoretical physics and start there and forget all about modern technology and go somewhere else totally with it, you probably would have something that nobody else would think of, and that's my idea of good science fiction.
I'm going to eventually dovetail to you, but
Yeah, Melanie.
Melanie, then Jen,
Yeah.
then Fedora.
I was just saying, this kind of
Kathleen.
goes. This goes to what was said earlier, that there's nothing wrong with dating yourself sometimes. But I was thinking of, I like reading old science fiction, especially old good science fiction.
Yes.
I'm thinking specifically of A Stranger in a Strange Land, and that's mostly social commentary. But the interesting thing about it, you see different things. It's a very different reading experience reading it today than it would be when it was published. Because some of the things that were the most outrageous during the day are some of the things that still ring the truest, and some of the things that the audience of the day would have not even noticed are things that's like, wait a minute. So for instance, he has very separate, like women can only be the nurses and all the men are the doctors, and very much people going, women characters are looking for their MRS degrees type things. And it was written in the 60s, so it was all about free love. But point is, free love thing would have come through in the 60s. But it's a nice, science fiction almost always is a reflection of the time period for when it's written. So think of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Mhm.
That's now, we read it as steampunk, but at the time, it was just plain old science fiction.
True.
Exactly.
Jen.
I wanted to sort of, are other people talking about technology, like a technology type thing?
I've got one thing to say about technology, but I wanted to come back to with Fedora very briefly, but I was going to wait till I got through everybody.
I was just going to sort of like kind of try and put it in a package, like a box. A specific data storage shaped box. Because if you look just specifically at data storage and how we have stored data over time, that is a fantastic way to just sort of conceptualize how technology moves. Because who else out there in listener land is 90s kid, grew up watching 90s cartoons, or not a 90s kid and watched 90s cartoons anyway?
Hello.
How many
me.
times was the world saved or destroyed by the contents of a floppy disk?
Oh, yeah.
I have a scene in my head from Gargoyles where they hold a floppy disk up in the air and say, "I've got it," and you can't run that thing anymore. There's
We don't have the technology.
there's a
I still
post. There's a post going around somewhere on the internet that I ran into that's got the Morris internet worm, like the first most destructive internet worm. It is in prison on a 5.5-inch floppy under glass. It's imprisoned there because there's no way it's ever getting out.
That is awesome.
But the point is that, like, you look at storage even within that short lifetime, the 90s, people were using floppy disks. Floppy disk is tape. It's a tape disk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though the casing is hard, young people who know that a floppy disk is actually hard and think we're crazy, inside it's a flexible disk in a plastic case to keep us from breaking it.
They started off at 5.5 inches and they were very floppy.
They were very floppy. That's
So, it's stuck.
But so now, I remember being super excited in high school that they gave me a zip drive that could hold lots of things on it. It held all my homework. And then I went to college, and with my very expensive lab fees, they had me buy a 60 gigabyte hard drive that needed to be plugged into the wall. And from there, I got myself a tiny little lacy hard drive, felt like I was in the future, that ran off of 2 USB drives that held 40 gigabytes.
I've got you beat.
And I've currently got a thumb drive that's about as big as the tip of my finger that has just 16 gigs on it sitting on the end of my keychain ready to get broken because I don't care. I mean,
Well, just think, like basically, what is it, like the 5 megabyte, like, you know, drive that they have to wheel off the airplane, and like, you know, it takes like 5 guys to push it up into the building. Yeah. That's like, you know, yeah. Anyway.
But if you're looking into the future, like you're thinking about think about data storage in the future. You're writing your sci-fi thing. Well, the rapidness of basically requirements is what moved that. Chair technology has not evolved very much over time.
No.
Chairs are good. We're using them. They're fine. We need more.
Books are still
and
good.
Books
too.
are still good. They hold the words we need. We like to hold that stuff. Not everything is going to change rapidly, but computers are things that we use are things that you're looking at and you think that could be more efficient. That's what you should use your magic brain in future vision to do.
Yeah, what do you wish you could do? And then just have the technology do it. And don't explain how it works. Just have a way that's consistent.
And have everyone in the world know how to use it and just accept it as reality. And don't have someone point at it and say, boy, that used to be a floppy disk, because then you've undone everything. In Babylon 5, they have crystal storage technology, which I always laughed at because I don't know how they labeled those things.
Well, yeah,
it
you're right.
looks like a salt rock.
Well,
Yeah.
and Superman had
And
crystal.
how do you know which salt rock? You got like 6 of them laying on the desk. I mean, some of them were different colored, but which blue one is my homework on?
There's a plot point in Crusade about that. One of them had porn on it.
Yes, I remember that plot
One of
point.
those-
Yes.
Oh, God. Don't let that crystal get out.
And they used it as a bait and switch kind of thing, but it's one, you know, this guy had all the knowledge of his world on an egg tray full of crystals, and one of them had human porn on it.
No, it
And
was
it's
porn
like-
with a
It was
Park
Pakmara
Marat.
porn.
Yeah, you have to watch.
Pakmara is a squid man who eats dead stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. This
the
image.
porn also evolves in the future.
Yeah, thanks to the internet. Just FYI,
And that's the bow on the top
Kathy,
of
I'm
my
coming right
package.
to you, but I've got to share this after Jen's little thing.
Hey, porn drives technology.
It does.
Sadly, yeah.
It's my
Talk
boy
about
one. Oops.
talk about change of technology with computers. I'm the son of a computer programmer. I used to have punch cards in this house. I have
Punch
seen
cards.
kids do punch cards. I used to program in DOS. Big papers filled with your computer programming that you got to
My
read
parents
through.
were computer programmers too. I remember.
Yes,
No. Okay.
the big
So
magnetic tapes. So technology has changed drastically. Let me get to Kathleen. She's been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Sorry.
And Chantel. I think you've been waiting, haven't you?
Yes, Chanel, we have.
Chanel. Sorry. I should have called you. I've got a friend called Chantel. I'm sorry. I got the two goofed. My bad.
Think of Coco Chanel.
She's the most fashionable, so she's Chanel.
For obvious reasons on multiple levels. All right.
I'm sorry.
So I was going to just reread the rule that we were talking about. Avoid specific visual description of technology. The author, Mark Vanderkamp, says that it kind of breaks the show don't tell rule, but the example he gave was the computers in Arthur C. Clarke's story about this set of computers that this monastery owned that was coming up with all the different names of God and was printing them all off.
Yes.
And that would still be completely plausible today to have a story like that and not make it feel dated, except that he described too closely what the computers were like. And they used like typewriter technology. And we don't use typewriters anymore unless, you know, we're writers of a very specific kind or collectors of things that we don't necessarily use. So that makes the story dated because the kind of computers we use don't have, you know, typewriter keys anymore.
No.
So the suggestion is to take technology that we know, like even if we're not extrapolating to the future, if you're using technology that we have today, like a cell phone, don't describe it too closely. Like for me, don't tell that she flips open the phone and say she answers the phone.
Mm-hmm. She answers a call.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't leave messages necessarily anymore. Now it's like, oh, I left something on your voicemail. Like,
yeah, it's like I texted you.
Yeah.
But it's still considered a message. But while you're making real good points, like I don't want to scare our writer friends listening in internet land that they've done it wrong, that they put technology, they define their technology and committed to something, and it's now ruined your sci-fi. I want to point out that Aliens computer technology, like the stuff from the Aliens movies, that still feels futuristic because everything around it feels futuristic, even though it's super 80s. Like, it's what I thought the future looked like. It's a wall of blinking lights and built-in CRT monitors, and that's completely out of our realm now. But it feels futuristic to us because within the world it feels natural.
Right.
It also feels used. Like that was a really good thing about, especially with that first one, how there's dirt and grime and everything all over it. It's everything has been used by all these characters, and that's what makes it really work. That's what makes you buy into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Vanderkamp does point out that, like, if your story needs specific details like that, it's okay to put them in. Like, Fedora has been saying it's okay to be dated. And to some extent it is. Like, if your story requires that they use, say, a keyboard on a cell phone, for example, then have them use the keyboard on the cell phone. Just recognize that at some point we might not have keyboards on our cell phones.
Ooh, I have another example of sort of it not working properly. One of my favorite movies in the whole world that I'm aware is horribly flawed is I, Robot, starring Will Smith. I, Robot is supposed to be in the not too distant future. Yeah, and we've got pretty much everything's the same except there's funky car wheels and we have robot assistants. And I like that. I like that portion of it, but at the very beginning of the movie, they ruin it by closing up on Will Smith's Converse tennis shoes and saying, this vintage tennis shoe that is also product placement in my movie is a quirky thing because it's not a common thing we have here. This is vintage tennis shoe technology. And by saying that, if he'd just been wearing Converse tennis shoes, I wouldn't have asked. It would have felt normal for him to wear Converse tennis shoes with the way that he was dressed, and we would have looked at it and say, oh, I guess there's Converse in the future. And that wouldn't have been a big deal. It wouldn't have been a big deal at all. But because they pointed at it and they're like, hey, we know we're in the future. Look at the vintage tennis shoes. It took you out of the world, even though it wasn't even kind of out of the question to exist.
Okay, we've got about 10 more minutes before we've got to close, and we've got one more thing. So really fast, Chanel, yes, I got it right first time. George, Brad, and then myself, and then after I say something, I'm going to be turning this one to the final point. So
one thing I was going to kind of dovetail off of was what Fedora was saying earlier about the idea of using sort of the ideas of science and physics and things like that on a more experimental level. I have literally sat through a physics class and tried to work out formulas for like fluid mechanics and things like that and got them completely wrong, almost failed my class. But I came up with the coolest idea for how a machine would work based on how wrong that my equations were. It was wonderful, and I was so excited. And I was like, almost ripped the page out of the book. I was like, look! And I was explaining it to my teacher. He's like, yeah, no, that's not how that works. But go you.
I'll show you.
But I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily always line up with what physics is there, but it definitely can work as a wonderful starting off point to get your brain going.
I can apply my word of the week, verisimilitude.
Yes.
It doesn't have
Verisimilitude?
Verisimilitude means a believable lie. It doesn't have to be true as long as it's a believable lie.
It's the same. Truthiness
Truthiness.
is a synonym.
And
Good word.
if you're talking about the quality of this, it is verisimilitudinous.
Wow. Remind me after we're done to talk to you about black holes. I'll explain that in a bit. Go ahead, George,
just a
and then Brad.
couple of points. First of all, for Chanel, isn't that how usually like mad scientists start their careers? What you should have done is like you should have just gone into another room and just said like the fools, they have no idea. And all of a sudden you'll get scarred and you'll have to wear a mask and you would have had a whole different career in front of you.
Exactly.
On in the direction that was laid out for you.
I didn't know you knew Chanel that well.
Oh, you could have always been Dr. Horrible.
And also for regarding verisimilitude, there's one major element that I really just have to touch on. We just started watching the Netflix series The Magicians. I'm a couple episodes into it. I'm enjoying it for the most part. It's fun and everything, but at the
Keep
same
having
time,
fun with it.
at the
Keep
same
having
time,
fun.
After this is over, we need to have a conversation.
Okay.
At the same time, though, I can buy into this whole element of the story that they're trying to tell. But one of the very first shots of this show is a newspaper headline that says was it like climate change definite proof, and it's the New York Post. That I called BS on because the New York Post is run by Fox, which would never say anything like that. If that was the Daily News, I would have gotten it. So but just to hop on what I was mainly going to touch on before, for the writers that are out there, the main thing to keep in mind when it comes to what you're writing in terms of sci-fi is to keep in mind what kind of sci-fi you want to tell. What kind of world is this going to be? Is it going to be utopian, where everything has progressed to a point where we're seeing like flying cars and self-lacing shoes and everything, or are we seeing a dystopian future where it's raining all the time and nothing works anymore? That's something to just kind of keep in mind as well. Like, which kind of sci-fi do you want to tell?
Exactly.
There is, speaking of it's raining all the time and nothing works anymore, a wonderful, wonderful app called The Walk by Six to Start that is set in London in a dystopic future where an EMP has just gone off.
There you go.
Great sci-fi futuristic story if you ever want to go walking around and listening to awesome stories.
Cool. Brad?
Sorry, I had to say it.
I was going to say go crazy with your technology, and the reason why is I have no idea where they got the idea or anything, but I am still curious how to use the 3 shells.
No one knows. 3 shells.
Exactly, but somebody out there probably knows. It's probably a big joke or something. I don't know, but the point is that it's memorable. I still think of it, at some weird point, usually when I see a shell or 3 shells lined up. Decorators get weird, and I'm like, that's odd, but get weird with it, get crazy with it, because you never know, and you might create the next 3 shells.
What are the 3 shells?
You've never seen Demolition
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
Yeah,
What are the 3
it is.
shells?
Shells replace toilet paper.
Yes, exactly. They replace toilet paper in Demolition Man.
Nostalgia Critic does a very good breakdown of what it could be.
But the point is that he uses the bathroom and he can't find the toilet paper, and there's just 3 shells.
Yes.
How no one explains how to use them, and he just has to live.
And they're all like, "Oh yeah, the 3 shells. You know how to use the 3 shells."
So, an alternative, and then I do want to hit the final thing because we are running out of time. An alternative also to places to look for futuristic ideas. May I recommend Dr. Mikhail Kaku? Not only all his books, but he also has a show called Next World, which shows what he is predicting the world to look like in about 30 to 50 years. And he's also done various lectures where he's talking about technology, how he sees it, how it's being propagated out. And he propagates it out 35 to 50 to 100 years or so. Listen to him, and then let your imagination go, wow, what could be the next step?
And I will say that was mispronounced, but I can't pronounce his name either.
I know. I'm bad at pronunciation. Okay, final thing, and this is something which Star Trek itself has been caught on, and that is...
You mean our Lord and Savior Star Trek didn't do something right?
Well, no, what you want to do, according to the article, is avoid historical absolutes. Now, Star Trek got it wrong with the entire eugenics war.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe
That wasn't in the 90s? I thought that was the 90s. I was in the 90s. I fought the eugenics wars. What are you talking about?
Go back to using cocaine. No, just joking. Sorry, another reference to Star Trek, not to Brett.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
But they had the eugenics war, which created the Third World War in the 90s. Well, we're past the 90s. It didn't happen. You can argue whether that's happening right now. We won't go down that road.
You can argue about it in some sci-fi and vague terms.
Right. But
So in other words, what you're saying is Star Trek was just like 20 years behind.
It
was almost like it was made in the past.
H.G. Wells also had made the same mistake with his time machine. He put things that were supposed to be historical absolutes in there that now we know, of course, did not happen or will not be happening. We hope. Just that. So, but that doesn't mean you can't use history. Just avoid the historical absolutes of the future.
It's making up future historical events.
Right.
It's future historical people you can make up.
Exactly.
As long as you do it far enough into the future or don't make them too famous.
Yeah, there you go.
Kathleen and then George.
I wanted to actually read the paragraph that goes along
Please.
with avoid historical absolutes.
Uh-huh.
So Mark Vanderkamp says, this guideline really should be common sense, but we all love a first, last, or only. They make good stories and they're compelling concepts. The issue, particularly with firsts and onlys, is that history can easily prove one wrong. Of course, the more absurd the idea, the less likely it is to be a problem. First sentient plant running for president, you're probably safe. First openly gay candidate, not so safe. And this was written in 2015, so already.
Yep. Good.
So yeah, when it comes to like historical absolutes, one thing that I personally get a lot of fun doing is keeping an eye on the science fiction movies, the multitude of science fiction movies that make a point to throw in all these different dates. My personal favorite, of course, August 29th, 1997, Judgment Day.
Oh no,
we have already, and also just to keep in mind, we have already passed the events of both Escape from New York and Escape from LA.
Yeah.
Hey, I really enjoyed celebrating Back to the Future Day.
Yes.
That was fun.
I'm still waiting for my
October
flying
21st, 2015
everything.
was a great day.
I'm looking forward to the shirt that adjusts itself to my body shape.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
It's gonna be great. Unfortunately, it's supposed to come out last year and it didn't.
Just the fact that they were only 1 year off on the Cubs winning the World Series, that's impressive.
Yeah, seriously.
That is kind of unique. I would throw in real quick, 2017 is the year of Running Man.
That's right.
So we get new TV this year.
Yes.
Expected NBC fall lineup.
Well, once we get the new network ICS, then you can start worrying.
Exactly. Yes.
Kathleen, and if you want to bring this to a close, go for it. If not,
Oh, I was gonna say that he does, again, he says that if your story needs a specific detail, if your story requires a specific detail and you're worried about it getting dated, that's okay. And I would like to add something that he does not have in there, but that definitely has been in some stories, but in a way that I think is okay. Fashion. There are some urban fantasy stories that I love. For example, War of the Oaks by Emma Bull and the Anita Blake series by Laura K. Hamilton.
Yes. Oh, that fashion.
The authors describe what it is their main characters are wearing because they are fabulous people. And I, reading this in the 2000s and the 2010s, I'm like, why would you go out of the house like that? And then I remember, oh, it was the 90s. Okay. And it's part of the world, it's part of the character. So, understand that this kind of stuff is going to happen even if you make all these plans not to show the specific cell phone technology or not to show exactly what computers are like. You're going to date yourself somehow. So just accept that it's going to happen and do your best to keep enough of it out that the reader is not thrown out of the story.
Unfortunately, you can't change the fact that you live and write in the present.
Yes.
And that's going to make its way in Star Trek ways. All of the nurses are women and all the doctors are men. We never thought that would have been a weird thing.
Yeah.
One day it's just historical science fiction. That's all.
Yeah. I'm just going to finish up with Kathleen's thing. A couple of good examples of visual examples of clothing failures, shall we call it? While I absolutely love both these old shows, One did get rebooted. One's been a reboot and reboot and reboot, but the last reboot is the one I'm going to talk about there for a second.
Reboot.
The first one, Battlestar Galactica, the old version, 1970s version, with the capes,
It's
and
adorable.
it is adorable. I still love it for its time period. It's like
No. The light up ropes that people danced with
Yes,
on the dance
exactly.
floor. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for that fad.
Well, I even got that one beat. Let me throw out the other one. Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
Oh, Buck Rogers. It holds such a special place in my heart.
And with that, I'm going to end this. So tune in next week for yet another interesting topic in the writing industry. And have a great week writing. Thank you for listening.
GatewayCon? What is GatewayCon? The Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention, brought to you by St. Louis Writers Guild, is a new, unique experience for writers looking for their work to be either traditionally published, independently published, self-published, or to further their writing career. Coming in June 2017, GatewayCon will provide opportunities for writers to pitch their work to agents, hone their craft regardless if it is genre fiction or nonfiction, and obtain expert critiques. Get to meet vendors and experts who can help your writing get attention, and all writers get their work in front of their audience. Writers will get to network with agents, publishers, and others in your genre. Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention will be in St. Louis, June 16th through the 18th, 2017. For more information, visit www.stlwritersguild.org or look for GatewayCon on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. GatewayCon, opening the gateway for writers to reach their readers. Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.